Hello there, and welcome to the Stay Off My Lawn podcast, where we'll have a little fun, lots of laughs, and discussions on the common sense that needs to be applied to a lot of today's world news issues. And now, the disclaimer. Stay Off My Lawn is not intended as legal, medical, or financial advice. Void where prohibited. No purchase necessary to win. Open to legal U.S. residents 18 or over in the contiguous 48 states. Any resemblance to anyone living or deceased is purely coincidental. Actual price may vary. Only use as directed. Not a member of FDIC. And now, here are your hosts, Mike and Richard.
Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Stay Off My Lawn. It's April 2nd. Can't believe it's April already. 2024. And this is episode 61. 61, is that right? 61?
Yes, 61.
Yeah.
We just keep moving on up. Moving on up.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait, that's a different moving on up thing. Anyway,
now that song's going to be in my head.
You're welcome. So nothing like an earworm to start your day off.
Yes. All right, Wheezy, how was your weekend?
Oh, it was really good. My our granddaughter and her fiance, she feels guilty that she doesn't see us, and because she lives like an hour away, and it's still in the valley here, but it's she's on the far side of Boise practically. So she wanted to see us, and it's like, no, our house is not set up for visiting right now. I tell you what, we'll come to you. And she goes, well, we're kind of out of funds. She wanted us to come Friday. She goes, but we've got a coupon for, we've bought enough pizza that they had a free one coming. And I went, you know what? I said, you wanted to have Mexican food, and because you said that your fiance doesn't care for it that much. So I bought some thinly cut chuck steak, if you will, chuck roast, they cut it thin.
Yeah.
And I looked at that in the store, and it was on a closeout deal. And I went, man, that ought to make pretty good beef fajitas. And we bought it, and then the wife's surgery and everything else, and she only likes them cooked on the grill. The weather's been crappy, and I went, it's got to be cooked like now. So we've got it all. Oh, you don't need to bring, no, I made my marinade up, put it in a bag, and we took all the fixings and everything to her house. I've used her grill more than she has.
Oh, well, you got to teach her somehow.
Yeah. So I was asking her fiance, he's just a really good kid. I really like him. But I said, so I understand you don't really like Mexican food that much. He goes, no, I like fajitas. I said, good, because that's what you're getting tonight. You're getting grilled fajitas, buddy. Oh, not only did he like them, he had 3.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I said, eat it up. We're not taking it home. Here you go.
And buckle up, Buttercup, because next week it's empanadas.
So that always makes the cook feel good.
Yeah.
He wasn't being forced on him. He was chomping away on stuff. Man, this is so good. The marinade turned out well, and so we had a wonderful visit, and it was the wife's first venture out, if you will, other than to the doctor's office to get she was not happy about having those staples taken out. That was not pleasant.
Yeah.
She's sitting in there while the nurse is getting those staples out. They have a special little needle nose plier that pops them out so they'll lift straight out.
Yeah.
It bends them and pops them out. She's sitting there covering her eyes with her hands because she doesn't want to look.
Jeez.
And I'm sure they heard because she was going, okay, stop. I need a break. That's too much. And I'm sitting there watching. Oh, that's interesting. She goes, how can you do? It's not my body. I don't care.
I did that with when my wife had the cesarean section with Chris. It's like I'm looking over the curtain. I'm supposed to be holding the bucket in case she throws up, and then so it's like I'm looking over the curtain. He goes, "Do you want to come see?" Because she was out of it. She wasn't going to be throwing up or anything. I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Just make sure you're not going to be another patient for me." I'm like, "Going, it's not my body. I was just like you. Didn't bother me at all." No. Well, look at how many layers are you cutting? Yeah, it was very good.
So yeah, I don't know, growing up on a farm, and I cleaned many an animal and that kind of thing. And I don't know, it just doesn't bother me. It's like people go, oh, how do you cut a chicken up with a knife?
Yeah.
It's not that hard, really.
City folk. We're going to talk about that later on too.
Yeah.
That could have been a good segue. We missed it.
Oh, I know. Dang it. Bummer. So it was good. And then the other thing is we've been spending money like a drunk sailor because everything's dying all at the same time, just as long as it's not us. We had to get a new bed, our toaster croaked, the refrigerator freezer after 30 years is dying, her chairs finally wore out after 37. All this stuff only lasts 30 years. I don't get the
I
toaster
don't know
was
what it
30
is.
years old. What the heck? Why, I mean, it all just has gone at the same
It's
time.
not good. My daughter-in-law is gonna be 30 next year. I hope that she's gonna be okay.
I hope that doesn't go
Yeah,
for
let's
her
let's
that way.
yeah, let's hope.
And then I spent, if you've ever done that, Sunday afternoon crawling in my underneath the sink. I have a reverse osmosis system because the well water that we have is a little high in arsenic. So we
Ah,
kind of like
just
to filter that stuff out,
you throw a little old
Uh,
lace in there. I think that kinda makes it all better.
So I'm laying, and there's nothing worse than being under the sink because it's got that lip, and you got to find something to cushion your side, and you're all in there, and you can't
Yeah.
move, and you got to.
That's why they have that song, "Under the Sink."
Yeah,
It's a Disney song. It's just hard to now, all right, Steve, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. He didn't mean it on purpose. It just came
It
out.
just came
Jeez.
out, exactly. I've got no
Boy, is
self-control
he
this morning.
sensitive.
Yeah.
So it's I installed it all myself. I put the whole system in, and
Yeah.
you gotta the plummet, and I'm looking underneath there going, really? I did all this? I'll be darned. I didn't know I could be that smart.
Again, you're just so much better than you thought you were.
Yeah.
Uh,
So anyhow, it works really good, and it's what I always put in my coffee pot, so it makes really good coffee, blah, 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 and it just doesn't have that lovely arsenic
I
aftertaste.
mean, yeah, that can leave a little film on your teeth, I would think. Goodness
And in your
gracious.
coffin.
Eh, it's almonds. It I think that's almonds, I don't remember. But anyway, yeah, we didn't do really much for Easter. My son and daughter-in-law don't really celebrate Christian holidays very much, but, we did go over and see the granddaughters for a little while, and, since we were kinda busy on Easter Day, we had our Easter dinner yesterday. It was just, ham, mashed potatoes, and gravy, and some vegetables, and it's like, I had actually ate twice because I can't eat too much at one time, so I had 2 dinners about 3 hours apart, and it turned out extremely well. So
There
I'm
you
and I
go.
still have more leftovers. We've got leftovers
Yeah.
for days if we want it, so.
Yeah, the wife is still not very mobile. I mean, going and seeing our granddaughter and her fiance, and they're going to be moving into their newer house here, and will be owning that, which is really nice for 25-year-old kids. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah,
So
it's hard
yeah,
to
4 hours
do.
of that on Friday and Saturday, she was just absolutely wiped out. It was like, okay, well, 4 hours visiting, but an hour to and an hour home,
Yeah, yeah.
and she'd had enough by the
She
time we
slept
got
good
home.
that night. Yeah.
Yeah, it was yeah,
You
we
know,
were done on Saturday, so
you
and
mentioned
then doing all the grilling and standing up, I just can't stand that much anymore, but I was busy and visiting and in and out, going and grilling and checking, and I wore myself out too.
you know? That reminded me when you said that they just bought their house is that I just saw something the other day where they said for the average family to buy a house and to be able to afford the mortgage for that house, you would have to make, as a family combined, $110,000 to own an average house in America, the average price of a house in America. Um, I
That's
don't know how
just
people are
crazy.
doing it.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we bought our house
Well,
before everything
um,
happened, so.
his, uh, the fiance, his mom, came into a bunch of his grandmother came into a bunch when she sold her husband's farm when he passed, and then she bought each of her 2 daughters that she had a house, so she had this other house,
Oh,
and he
nice.
had actually lived there. She had bought it several years ago, so he kinda grew up in it through high school. It was the house he was in. It's not a
Well, there you
not a
go.
huge house, but it's a great starter, and she goes, "Here you go. This is yours. You guys make the payments on it, and then, after a year or something, she's gonna sign it all over, and the deed it'll be theirs."
What a
And so
great
they're being given
opportunity.
this house, and she goes, "Well, there's 165,000 owed on it, but it's worth 350 in this stupid market we
Man,
have."
they're walking into
What
a
a
lot of
wonderful way
equity.
to start out life.
Heck
I mean, that
yeah.
is she is just so that was such a wonderful, generous thing to do.
Absolutely. I hope to be able to
So,
do that one day for our kids and grandkids or whatever, who knows how it's all gonna shake out because the way the
yes,
economy is, I just don't know. I don't know
got to
how
get
we're
things fixed up. Anyway, speaking of Easter,
yeah, well, yeah, let's start off with a little bit of comedy relief because we're gonna need this. We
I hope
we
so.
we always like to start off with some wisdom from our beloved Commander-in-Chief, and this is how that went.
It's Uncle Joe's Wisdom of the Week.
I spent over almost 200 hours with the leaders of Europe, the heads of state. I know them all. I've known them well. And guess what? You know what every one of them says to me, virtually except Orban? I'm serious. As we leave these meetings, well, indirectly, they grab my arm and they pull me aside. I'm serious. They pull me aside and say, "You've got to, you can't win again."
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
He mentioned Orban. Viktor Orban was the Hungarian prime minister, and I'm sure that
and
they
he's
didn't
not
see
the
that.
only one
No,
because we had that last week. Of what country was the
it
other
was
gentleman from?
Albania. Albania?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know what delusional part of they have no use for how weak the Americans have become
No.
in his regime, and it's not going over. They
No.
don't care for him at all.
Not at all. Not at all. Well, like
So,
we were talking, Easter was just this past weekend. And according to the official White House website, you can go check this out yourself, whitehouse.gov. The Easter Sunday this past Easter Sunday was the official beginning of Transgender Day of Visibility. Of course, everybody has probably heard this by now. First of all, who said they needed more visibility? It seems like whenever you see one, it's like they're very visible. Anyway,
there's way too much visible.
yeah,
Is what
some
the
guy
problem
with
is.
makeup and a beard and a dress, the whole thing. Anyway, they couldn't be more visible, I don't think. But anyway, this is a quote from whitehouse.gov. It says, "Now, therefore, I, Joseph R. Biden Jr., President of the United States, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution of the laws of the U.S., do hereby proclaim March 31st, 2024 as Transgender Day of Visibility. I call on all Americans, blah, 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 blah." Anyway, Uncle Joe yesterday, of course, today's Tuesday, yesterday at a presser, I think, somewhere, he was asked about it, and he says, "I didn't do that." Either he doesn't remember or his handlers forgot to tell him. But he
Or
said
his
he didn't.
handlers did it and didn't go, it'll be fine. He's not going to remember it.
Yeah. Anyway, KJP was asked about it too, and this is what she had to say.
So the criticism over the Transgender Day of Visibility, the White House said that the president wouldn't abuse his faith for political purposes. Does the president think that's what Republicans are doing?
I mean, look, just a couple of things, and really so surprised by the misinformation that's been out there around this. And I want to be very clear. Every year for the past several years, on March 31st, Transgender Day of Visibility is marked. And as we know, for folks who understand the calendar and how it works, Easter falls on different Sundays, right? Every year. And this year it happened to coincide with Transgender Visibility Day. And so that is the simple fact. That is what has happened. That is where we are. And I do want to say a couple of things because I think it's important here. As you just stated in your questions, what we've been hearing out there, a lot of misinformation done on purpose. And as a Christian who celebrates Easter with family, President Biden stands for bringing people together and upholding the dignity and freedoms of every American. Now, sadly, and it's not surprising, right? It is actually unsurprising that politicians are seeking to divide and weaken our country with cruel, hateful, and dishonest rhetoric. It is dishonest what we have heard the past 24 hours. It is untrue what we heard over the weekend.
I don't know what is supposed to be untrue.
I would like, I don't understand it either, but good old KJP, another DEI hire.
Yes,
Anyway,
exactly. But the thing that gets me, and I had some, I don't know if I can use this term, libtard, kind of like jumped at me on social media the other day because I had posted something about this and said, well, it's been going on since 2009 or whatever. It's like, but the guy that you support supposedly, even though this woman was supposed to be a conservative, the guy that you support made it official on Easter Sunday. So how you get past that? I don't know.
It's just stuff that I mean, I've heard that clip before because, like always, you and I seem to see the same stuff.
Yeah.
And my eyes just now, if they rolled any harder, I swear they were going to fall out of my head.
I would imagine you got a
Give me
headache from that. Yeah.
Give me a break.
And now one more thing with this too is that, believe it or not, there were some videos put out to celebrate this whole thing, of course, by leftist people. You're going to hear from Greasy Gavin, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Department of Education head Miguel Cardona, and of course, the Assistant Secretary of Health, which she looks very unhealthy to me, Rachel Levine. And here's how those videos went.
Today, on Trans Day of Visibility, we celebrate the trans individuals in our communities and recognize their struggles for recognition and increasingly survival in the face of unfathomable hate.
On Trans Day of Visibility, my message is simple. I see you and I've got your back.
From all of us here at the Department of Education, happy Trans Day of Visibility.
On this Transgender Day of Visibility, we must continue to make focused and ongoing efforts to end inequities, eliminate the impacts of injustice, and improve access to care for everyone. Today of all days, I stand proud and visible with my fellow transgender Americans. Happy Transgender Day of Visibility.
Anyway, yeah, I know. I need the throw up thing, but the. The one word I didn't notice it before. He used inequities instead of inequalities, which I think is very interesting. Inequity, of course, is very different than inequality, but that's probably for another day. Anyway, we're up against a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the violent crime that's continuing in New York City and just getting worse by the day. So hang in there. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned for more of the stay off my lawn, peed, but you know the thing. Anyway, they'll be right back.
Sometimes.
Frank, before we go any further, there's something I have to tell you.
Now it fell off.
No, nothing like that. I wish it were something that trivial.
The world as you know it.
Frank, I have 8 children.
8 children?
4 boys, 4 girls, different ages.
Is not entirely what it seems.
Wait till you hear what I have to tell you.
What?
I have 10 children.
10? 10?
3 boys, 5 girls.
Henry Fonda.
That's only 8.
Oh, and 2 on loan out.
Lucille Ball.
Frank, 8 and 10 is
ridiculous.
Beginnings in theaters Friday.
All right, welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn, segment 2, and we're going to jump right into the New York City and their violent crime, which is, of course, part of it's illegal immigration, part of it's letting people out of jail way early and all that stuff, but it has totally taken over the city. And do you remember this thing called the knockout game that was around? I don't know how many years ago. It was 7, 8 years ago.
A long time. Yeah, something about that, and it didn't last very long because people that were doing it were getting arrested, and it was they stopped the lawlessness rather quickly.
Yeah.
They're not stopping crap anymore.
Yeah, I know, not anymore. But they used to find a random person, usually older or somehow an easy target, and punch them in the face and hopefully knock them out, which is, it just seems, I mean, you could play Scrabble on your phone instead, man. I'm just saying. But anyway, it's reappearing, and the focus is now all women. Which, of course, nobody can define, but it is all women. One lady that it just happened to went to a social media account, and this is how that sounded.
You guys, I was literally just walking, and a man came up and punched me in the face. Oh my God, it hurts so bad. I can't even talk. Literally, I fell to the ground, and now this giant goose egg is forming, and I'm like, oh my God, it looks so crazy.
I mean, it's terrible. It's like the way she talks. It's a millennial speak, I guess. But
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it's terrible. Nobody should be
Yeah,
punched in the
I don't
face.
wish that on
No.
anybody. And people, if you've ever walked in a major metropolitan area or just in a downtown or whatever, a mall, whatever, everybody's heads down and they're all looking at their phones. They're
Yeah.
not paying attention where they're going. They're not paying. So they're going to be just uber easy targets because your head's down and you're not paying any attention.
And
You know, there's going to be some deaths that are going to happen, and it may not be the people that got punched that are going to be dead.
Well, you never know. But maybe that's a good PSA for us. I mean, pay attention. I mean, now better, more than ever, especially if you're in a metropolitan area, pay attention to your surroundings. Keep your head on the swivel, like they used to say back 40, 50 years ago. But one response to these specific crimes came from a New York City councilwoman, Amanda Farias. And she actually said in a public statement, where are all the men calling this out? Basically it's like, why are the men not stopping this?
Because the police are too busy. They don't have the time for that, and they're not going to prosecute them anyway.
But the whole idea is that the men should be stepping up, and when they see these kind of things going on, they should stop it. That's the way I'm reading what she's saying. The funny thing is, Amanda Farias gave another public statement where she celebrated. Remember this guy Jordan Neely, who was the guy that got killed in that subway. He was a violent criminal anyway. This ex-Marine.
He had a rap sheet as long as your arm.
Exactly. This ex-Marine and college student, Daniel Penny, he killed this guy on the subway inadvertently. He didn't do it on purpose, but he stopped him before he could hurt anyone else, and he ended up dying. And
he was going after people, and he went, "No, that's enough of that."
Exactly. So he was a guy who stepped up. And she came out with a statement after that happened and says, I continue to be heartbroken and outraged by the death of Jordan Neely and the lack of justice. We demand justice for Jordan. So you can't, apparently, if you're a New York City council person, you got to have it both ways.
Well, if you're not talking out of both sides of your mouth, there's another place then you need to stand up so we can better understand you.
Yeah.
It's like, give me a break. What the heck? You can't have it every which way you want when something's going on, one side or the other. And step up. Oh, now you're at fault.
Whichever way the wind's blowing, whichever way gets you reelected, apparently.
I guess. Christmas. My eyes are going to hurt by the end of this episode today. I hope you know that. I can't roll them any harder.
You are rolling them a lot today. Well, these are the unique rules for living in New York City. You got to figure out whatever the prevailing political opinions is. And anyway, but if you're living in New York City, keep voting for these loony people, and you're going to continue to get loony results. So
yep, you're going to get what you voted for, people, and right now you're getting a lot of it.
Absolutely.
And you're going to just keep voting for them. Okay, you want to listen to the propaganda machine pump out more garbage that's absolute flat out lies, which is what they're doing, talking about, say, Trump, and he's gonna, and this is what he'll do, and you don't know. You made the same stuff up in 2016. He didn't do any of it. He did what he promised he would do, which politicians don't normally do, and that blew you away.
All those accusations are things that they're actually doing right now. They're in the process of doing.
Yep, 100%. Go look it up, people. Everything that they're accusing is what they're doing.
Yep.
Accuse the other one. That's in the communist playbook. You can look it up too if you want. I read it, and it's word for word almost accurate.
If you look, and I think the book you're referring to is Saul Alinsky's Rules for. Oh, I can't remember what it's called now. I was going to call it rules of engagement, but it's something about it's a democratic
rules
playbook
for something the masses, isn't it?
I just don't remember. But anyway, you look up Saul Alinsky and a book that he wrote. I think it was back in the 70s or 80s. It's very, very interesting stuff, and that you're seeing that all play out right now. Hillary Clinton and Saul Alinsky was they kind of mirrored each other back in the day anyway.
Yep. It's almost they're using it for a playbook. Let's see. Here on page 16, we got to do, okay, we'll do that. Oh, they're on 32. We've got to, that. No, we'll do that too. Yep. It's scary if you read it. It's just not
Yeah,
right.
I don't
Anyway.
know. I don't know if I want people to necessarily read that, but rules
Well,
for
you need to know
radicals. That's
what's
what it's
going
called.
on.
Rules for
Rules for what?
radicals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. Well, anyway, speaking of the difference between the way voters think, there was a new Quinnipiac poll that just came out last week, and they asked voters of all persuasions, GOP, whether you're a Democrat or whether you're independent, the same questions. What are their top issues for the upcoming election? And Republicans came out and said, number one is immigration. I totally agree. It's out of control. And number two is the economy. Again, I agree. It's out of control.
Control.
Independents came out, had the exact same copy and pasted answers. Immigration, number one, the economy, number two. Democrats, however, came up with two very different answers. And now this. I don't think Quinnipiac is necessarily a conservative organization, and they've got no reason to lie about any of this. But the number one issue for Democrats in this upcoming election is preserving democracy. And again, what kind of country?
It is not a democracy.
That's right.
It is a constitutional republic. You putzes.
And apparently some of these people do nothing but listen to Justin Trudeau up in Canada. But number two is climate change, because that poor guy doesn't know how to talk.
Canada's not listening to Justin Trudeau.
No. He can't talk about anything else. Everything rolls back to climate change with him. And they're going through all kinds of stuff with the carbon tax that he keeps upping up there. But yeah, climate change is number two in the Democratic world, which, oh my gosh. But
I'm sorry, but my opinion is, yes, the climate does change. The Earth has been changing for millions and billions of years. So if you think little old humans can go in and stop the Earth from having its changes, you're delusional. It's not going to happen.
If it's causing you that much consternation and it's making your tummy upset, just think about something else. For goodness sake, you rolled your eyes again. It's got to hurt. It's got to hurt.
They're getting sore already, and we're only on
I know.
number 3. I'm not going to make it to the end. I tell you, I'm going to die. Anyway.
Oh, anyway.
Wowzer. Yeah, it's I have no problem. Yes, it is climate change. They've gone away from global warming. They changed it to climate change. Yes, the Earth changes.
Mm-hmm. And always has and always will.
Yes. Well, people go, oh, there's no way. Oh, no, there's evidence that there were, hippos were in Great Britain on the Thames. They found bones, and I mean, it was all lush, and it's different. It's not going to be the same forever.
And Google ice cores in Antarctica and see what you find out there, because it's going to fly in the face of all this political jargon that they keep throwing out there for this climate change.
And on top of that, since you're talking the southern hemisphere, how about the northern hemisphere? Oh, Greenland's going to be there. Won't be. It has more ice on it now than it did 5 years ago.
Oh, stop!
Jiminy Christmas!
That just can't be. It just can't be.
Get so sick and tired of being lied to. Okay, stop rolling. Stop rolling. I can't read anymore.
It's gotta
stop
hurt.
rolling.
Let's move on. We'll see. Maybe this won't do it. I bet it will, though. Seems that whoever is sitting in the White House can weaponize the FBI, DOJ, the judicial system, or whatever. And we've seen that magnified probably 20-fold since the Biden regime came into power. Senator Kennedy commented on this recently, and love me some Senator Kennedy, but he gave some interesting insight on all this.
Well, one of the reasons that America, in my opinion, is the greatest country in all of human history, and one of the reasons we're so wealthy, is because of our stable judicial system. That's why foreign capital flocks to the United States, because they know if they get in a legal dispute, they'll get a fair shake in our court system. No one is above the law, but nobody is beneath it. And President Biden and his minions have politicized the judicial system. In prosecuting one of their political opponents right before an election. That's the sort of thing that's done in countries whose Powerball jackpot is 287 chickens and a goat. That's not America. We don't do that. Our judicial system is supposed to be above the law. And they meaning President Biden and the loon wing of his party, but they've broken the ceiling though. These prosecutions of a political opponent, they may be the first, but they won't be the last. There are thousands of ambitious prosecutors across the country. Some of them are Republicans, and this is a dangerous, dangerous precedent.
I hope he's right. It sounds to me like what he's saying is that, what's good for the goose is going to be good for the gander when we get in power again. And, I mean, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, the rhinos are getting voted out left and right, so that's not always a bad thing either. But yeah, all of this stuff that's happening and people are seeing it, even in the big state of New York when they had this memorial for the officer that was slain from, if I remember right, wasn't it from illegal alien or something? Anyhow,
I don't remember what the situation is. Yeah, we got that story coming up.
A released criminal of some sort, if I remember right, a known released criminal. Yeah. And so they were having this memorial, and Trump went to that while the Democrats were raising money. How nice of them. They didn't go to it. And Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, tried to go, and the officers escorted her out. She was not welcome there. And the look on her face when he goes, no, you're going to have to, she goes, no, I'm the governor. And you could just see her mouth. You couldn't hear it, but they were escorting her out. And then there was applause when they escorted her out. And there was a guy, get her out of here. You could hear that in the background. Even in New York, they've had enough of this crap. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, the Biden administration raised $26 million during that whole thing. And of course, Trump went over and Trump was welcomed. And he was very, and this fundraiser had Uncle Joe, of course, and Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. And I was kind of surprised W wasn't there too, because he hates Orange Man too.
He should have been. He's the head rhino, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Well, he's been kind of quiet, but still. But yeah, that whole Kathy Hochul thing, I mean, the look on her face, I mean, she looked extremely constipated, and it's like she was not a happy woman at all.
Yeah, it was like, what do you mean I can't be out? Go, you're not welcome. She was like, but I'm the governor. I get to do what I want. No.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
You can stand out in the parking lot if you want, I guess, but that's about all we're going to give you. I guess we're up against a break, so let us take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the government's love affair with EVs and how that's turning out. not so.
Or you mean how it's not turning out?
Yeah, not so good. So hang in there. We'll be right back.
The Stay Off My Lawn radio show and podcast will be right back.
Cure Search for Children's Cancer is a 501c3 U.S.-based nonprofit foundation that accelerates the search for cures for children's cancer by driving innovation, overcoming research barriers, and solving the field's most challenging problems. We fight every day to make new and better treatments possible for the 43 children diagnosed with cancer each day. Find out how you can help at curesearch.org. That's CURE search.org.
All right, welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn. We are past the halftime segment 3. Yeah, and Jesse Waters, sorry, my cough dropped, recently ran a story about the government's love affair with EVs, and not necessarily anybody else. Was 1% of people are driving EVs?
Well, and it's getting less. They have thousands of these things. Ford said, we're not making any more because they're not selling and they're just sitting here. So we're not doing anymore. I think GM did the same thing, and the government went, no, but you have to. And they go, no, we don't.
Have you seen those Ford Mustang EVs? It's like I've got a meme of it. He's sitting. There's a Ford EV, a Mustang EV, next to I think it was like a 70 Mach 1. And he goes, "Happy Father's Day, Dad." He goes, "You're not my son." And it was like, I think that's because that if you're going to pervert a brand Make it a Ford Taurus or something. Don't make it a Ford Mustang. Nobody buys those things. I think I've seen one on the road.
Yeah, they're not buying them. Do you know that they have a speaker system in the back? So when you rev up, like you're going to go somewhere,
Oh, yeah.
So it has the sound. They have a speaker underneath the car that puts out the Mustang sound when you push on the gas pedal. That's just the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
It's sad. It's very sad. Anyway, Jesse Waters ran this story, and it's about the infrastructure around EVs, and it's pretty good.
When the big guy came into office, he spent $5 billion to build 500,000 stations across the country. We're supposed to have charging stations every 50 miles along every highway. It was supposed to be halfway finished by now. But guess how many charging stations he's built? 4. That's it. Hawaii, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York each have 1. So why is this taking so long? Where's the rest of the money? And who got the contracts? Republicans are demanding answers, but they're getting stonewalled by the administration. So are we. These stations are never going to be built because no one's buying electric cars. They barely work in the cold.
Yeah, that's another thing. You live north of Tennessee, you're screwed if you got an EV.
Or if you live in a state like mine and or yours even, in Georgia, it's a long ways between nothing and nowhere. You'll drive 30, 40 miles. There's no towns. You have to get off the freeway and drive a ways to find a town.
Yep.
So, and like you said, when it's cold, I was talking to someone the other day. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up. It was cold, and when it was warm, they were getting 270 miles or whatever around that range before they had to charge back up. I mean, it wasn't completely dead. It's supposed to get 300. That means you drive it, and it goes, boom. It's like you ran out of gas type thing on the freeway. And
put your tennis shoes on because you're walking.
Yeah, that's right. But they said in this last winter, which was not a rough winter, they were only getting about 100 and, what was it? Somewhere around 140, 160 miles. That's it. That's all the more it would go before they had to charge it up. The cold doesn't do well with the batteries. So,
I see Teslas, but I don't see a lot of domestic cars that are EVs. I don't see every once in a while I'll see a Nissan Leaf, but I haven't seen one of those in about a year. So I mean,
at one time the Prius and the Leaf kind of came out together, and for whatever reason the Prius was better made. I don't know.
The Prius is a hybrid. I don't
right.
think
It has a little engine that could. It's a little. What is it? A
1.3 liter or something.
It's a itty bitty tiny little engine, but and it supposedly when it runs or when you push on the brakes. At least this is something I remember. Don't hold me to it, but when you pushed on the brakes, it helped recharge the battery while you were actually driving. Type thing. So when you would come to a stop, start, whatever, that was supposed to be, helping the battery out. Yeah, and then they've gone straight electric, and they work, but the technology and stuff, it's just not made for it. And to destroy 500,000 pounds of earth to get enough stuff to make one battery, and that doesn't include the rare minerals that they have child labor getting in Africa.
And those child labor, the child labor problem is that a lot of that cobalt and lithium, that's toxic. I mean, these are kids that probably won't live past 25 years old.
Yeah,
I mean,
if they see 30, it'll be a miracle.
Yeah. It's just been a disaster.
But they don't tell you all that stuff. No. Nobody seems to want to push that out there. You have to go find it. It's there. It explains what it is. But that much, it's like, oh, it's clean energy. My eye, it's clean. It's anything but clean.
And it's, at least double the price. So, I mean, it just doesn't, what?
And what do you think they're moving that 500,000 pounds with? It sure as heck ain't an electric vehicle. I can tell you that right now.
It's a front loader with a diesel engine is what it is.
And it uses something like 12 gallons an hour or more.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So, yeah.
Well, speaking of the environment and government interference and all this stuff, farmers here and in Europe especially have had it up to here with the government interference from politicians. They try to regulate the fertilizers you can use, what to grow, what not to grow. And of course, too many cattle farts and the whole thing. The list goes on. This farmer over in the Great Britain was just recently interviewed about this, and he seems pretty fed up too.
We've had enough. Talking. For the last 20 years, we've been attacked by the political classes telling us how to farm in the countryside. Our family have looked after the countryside for over 500 years. We don't need townies to tell us how to farm. We're now being paid to stop growing food and grow wildflowers. It's insanity. And we're thinking of ceasing our production after 500 years.
Yeah, I mean, when they keep telling you townies,
I love that. That's my favorite word in it. And the townies in there, they're telling us they don't know a bloody thing about running a tractor, growing food. They want us to grow flowers, for crying out loud. We've had enough.
Anyway. Here in the U.S., it's not a whole lot different. But there is an initiative called the RAINS Act. And if you're not familiar with it, RAINS stands for the Regulations from the Executive in Need of Scrutiny Act. And really kind of boil that down, it would help limit the pencil-pushing wonks in the federal government from making decisions on industries that they don't know anything about. And you and I have talked about this many times before, too. It's like, these people are making decisions, on
They haven't got a clue what they're talking about. They've never stepped foot on a farm.
Nope.
I grew up on one, and I know how hard a farmer works, people. They don't work 5 days a week. My grandparents were dairy farmers. It's 7 days a week, twice a day. I don't care if it's a holiday. I don't care what the weather is. Bessie gets to be milked.
I wonder even how often these guys that are making a lot of these decisions pump their own gas. When was the last time that's what I'm talking about. They don't live normal lives like you and I do. They get up there in these lofty ivory towers and they forget totally about how the little people, the rest of us, have to go through life.
Well, it's like you don't need farmers. Just go to the grocery store and get your food.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Sure, that's gonna work out real well for you.
Well, Harriet Hageman, one of our favorite Congress
love
people.
our HH. Way to go, Harriet.
She was talking about the RAINS Act here recently, and this is what she had to say.
We're so often told that it's for the experts to be making these policy decisions, and that having Congress make the ultimate decision when it comes to, in this case, the RAINS Act making the ultimate decision when it comes to regulations that have an impact of over $100 million is unworkable. And that's just flat not true. For one thing, what people really need to understand is that the agency's expertise lies in the administrative process itself. The Biden cabinet is just an example. There isn't a person in the Biden cabinet that has ever worked in the private sector, not one. They aren't experts on farming or handling of livestock or producing oil or managing grocery stores or cooking on gas stoves or versus electric stoves. They're not the ones who manage the wildlife, even though we have a Fish and Wildlife Service. The Fish and Wildlife Service doesn't manage wildlife. The states do. They don't manage water quantity or water quality. Again, the states do. So when they talk about expertise and why we have to defer to the experts, the reality is the regulations that they're adopting are inherently biased in and of themselves because they're political decisions.
Yeah. It's all about being a politician. It's all about, you're making all these decisions. Like she said, they don't even know how to manage a grocery store. They don't have any idea about anything. Look at Fauci. Fauci is supposedly a doctor that has never been in private practice. Joe Biden, I think, has done nothing but be a politician.
Yeah, 50 some odd years in Congress and now, unfortunately, the White House. And yeah, none of them. And of course, who is he hiring? Lots of DEI, and they are inept and haven't got a clue how things work.
Yeah,
they're academia, and I don't care what you learned in school. That's great. That gives you a place to start and understand, but it's not practical. A lot of that stuff just doesn't work practicality wise from some nudge who wrote the book on here's how this works. No, it don't.
And and then the thing is, I think a lot of people don't even understand what DEI is. I had somebody ask me the other day. It's like, I keep hearing this DEI. What does that even mean? And so I explained to him diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you think about what equity is right there, that should throw out the whole thing. But basically, it's not equality of opportunity; it's equality of outcome. So, I mean, if you've got, I think I don't know what the demographics exactly are for the U.S., but I think blacks make up 13% of the population. I think Hispanics are somewhere in that neighborhood. But if the DEI contract says that you have to, and a lot of this is with federal government, they're incentivizing a lot of this stuff. Then you have to have an equal number of whites, equal number of blacks, and personally, I think you should hire, a purple person. If they're the best pilot or the best doctor or the best forklift operator or whatever, hire them. I don't care. And everybody I know, left and right, in my life, they all feel the same way. We are all on the same page as far as that goes. But this is a political position that's being pushed very hard by the left, by these wonks in Washington, D.C. It's just crazy.
They have no idea what they're doing. And then you listen to KJP or whatever, and she just is like, what? You're not even... That has nothing to do with what you're even talking about. What in the world? She hasn't got a clue what she's saying. None whatsoever. But boy, her nose grows really quick. I don't know. It must hurt a lot. Every day that sucker just keeps getting a little longer.
Jen Psaki was the same way. They read from the playbook.
Oh, I know. And then they hired Jen at MSNBC, and she had her own show for a little while. Nobody watched, so they canceled that. Is the last I heard. I don't watch MSNBC, so.
It's amazing how they completely misjudge the public. It's like with CNN. I mean, they really thought
CNN just keeps getting smaller and smaller.
Yep. And they keep putting these people out there that I can't remember the guy that they ended up firing just recently. And it's like they think that these people are what the nation can relate to, and they're not.
Right.
They're just
what the nation is about. And I got news for you. No, it's not.
Jeez.
This is not the average Joe on the street. I got news for you.
No. I don't think they have any idea what average Joe even means. Anyway, coming up on segment 4, we're going to talk about this Vince Ellison. He was speaking to a bunch of the Young American Foundation, and he has some very interesting things to say about politics. So hang in there. We will be right back.
If you're in our demographic, it might be a good time to go and pee. We'll be right back in just a minute.
Join the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society to help light the night and bring hope. Light the Night is a nationwide event that brings communities together to honor, remember, and celebrate those who have been afflicted with blood cancers. Lift your lanterns high and help shine a path to a cancer-free future. Be a part of Light the Night and find your local event at lightthenight.org. Let's light up the night and make a difference together. That's lightthenight.org to get involved.
Hi, welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn. Segment 4, it's almost done. Sit down.
Yay, but I want to go eat breakfast. Okay, I'll sit back down.
Have another sip of your coffee. It's going to be okay. Now, with all the focus on race in this country lately, which, to be honest, it all seemed to have started in the end of the 2000s anyway. You can kind of do the math for yourself. But there are more and more people willing to call out the hypocrisy of the Democrats, which I love to hear because, especially a lot of people who have just voted for the Democratic Party because that's what we've always done. It's what my parents did. It's whatever. And people are actually stopping and thinking for themselves and taking a step back and go, this just doesn't make any sense. I've got a clip from author Vince Ellison. He was speaking to the Young American Foundation recently, and this is how that sounded.
When the black community goes to the left and they ask them, can you feed me? Can you clothe me? Can you educate my children? Can you make me like you? Can you make me equal to you? They say, yes, we can do it if you just give us your soul. And for 50, 60 years, we've fallen for that lie. and we're at the bottom of every socioeconomic statistic in the United States of America. Look at where they rule. Everywhere they rule. Detroit, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, Memphis, everywhere they rule. Murder, mayhem, death, destruction, worse schools. They control every whorehouse, every crack house, every failing school. Haven't you done enough to my people? Haven't you killed enough of them? Haven't you put enough of them in prison, destroyed enough of their families? I hold you in utter contempt. And then you have the nerve to say you want to expand it. You have no shame.
Yeah. He's it was very well put.
Yep, they're just absolutely dead on. And some of them are looking around. Well, we've always voted for the one that had the D behind their name. Funny until Lyndon Johnson put in the signed the
Civil Rights
opportunity.
Act. Yeah.
What was it?
Civil Rights Act, I think it was in
Civil
64.
Rights Act, yeah, equal opportunity, whatever. The black communities were thriving.
Yep.
They were doing well. They had fathers that stayed home. They had both parents.
That's right.
They had wonderful little communities and were doing great. Well, now they can go out there and you're free. And what are they asking for now? To be segregated again. We don't want to sleep in a dorm with other crackers in there or whatever it is that we're referred to as. It's like, I don't care. Call me whatever you want. It don't matter to me. But
Saltine.
They want to segregate themselves. And it's like, did you not know what people fought for to, and they shouldn't have been ostracized from you can't use this water fountain. That's for why? That's the stupidest thing I ever heard of.
You look back on some of that stuff, it was
beings.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite neighbors we had was a black gentleman who taught me about computers, and my kids enjoyed visiting with him. And he was just a good neighbor. He was just a good guy. I don't care what color you are, but if you're going to push this, whether you're a LGBTQ plus elemental P, whatever on the end of it, I don't need it shoved down my throat. You're welcome to do and be whatever you want. You don't have the right to tell me I have to believe the way you do. That's not how it works in this country.
And I think that's how they're pushing some of these people away. The Democratic Party is that they've gone so far left, where they're for men in women's bathrooms, they're for men in women's sports. They're just, anybody who is even the slightest bit of independent thinker would be going, that's what this makes no sense. That's why you see a lot of these people who have voted Democrat for 50, 60 years are stepping back and going, yeah, you just don't represent me anymore.
Well, they haven't for a long time. They've always, and they're finally figuring this out. They keep making promises that we're going to do this and vote for me and you'll get this. And it's all giveaway. And then they go, wait a minute, I voted for you 4 years away for this giveaway that we never saw. Yeah. Money was allocated to. What happened to it? Where'd it go?
Yep. Somebody's got a beach house in St. Martin or something, because it certainly didn't go back
going to where it's supposed to. I can tell you that. Just like we were talking about the EV infrastructure, there isn't any. They built 4 on, what is it, $500 million?
Yeah. Where is that money? No, actually, I think I was wrong about $500 million.
No,
it ended up being $5 billion.
Yeah, $5 billion, and they've built 4, almost $1.25 billion apiece. It's like, I'm sorry, but where did it go?
Yeah, you're never going to get those answers, because you don't. Somebody will go to jail if you get those answers, and we don't want that.
No, they're not sending anybody to jail. It's like you get away with all the stuff that the crime family has done, and nothing happens. We need to just kibosh this in the news. Nobody can talk about that. You just stay off of that.
But I do think that people are kind of thinking for themselves. I mean, both my parents were Democrats, but they were Democrats back in the 40s and 50s when just about everybody was a Democrat, and it was because the Democrats kind of like stood up for the common person. The Republicans were the ones for the big business, even though you take a step back and go, the big business. They were at that point, and that's why trickle-down economics worked during the Reagan administration, is because you gave the businesses a break that allowed them to expand, hire more people, and invest more in their business, which I don't think it would happen today. I think that would be a complete flop today because everybody that's a CEO anymore seemingly is
Are
just
all
a
bleeding heart
greedy SOB.
lefties.
Yeah.
Yep.
They don't
Yeah,
care.
they've all merged to so many. You look at these things and you go, oh, well, this is Ben and Jerry's ice cream. No, it's not. It's owned by Unilever.
Yeah.
Start looking at things, people. These companies own, Nestle owns probably 70 different companies.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, little Campbell's soup, isn't it nice? No, Campbell's soup owns about 30.
Yeah. I think I saw something about that. There's only like 15 companies that really own all these other small companies that we think we're buying small businesses, just like you said.
Burt's Bees used to be an independent and people loved their product, and then somebody else bought them, and then they found a way to make more money by making it cheaper.
And
So the way that it was being done isn't the way it's done now. They sold out and took their millions and are living wherever. But yeah, your food stuff is coming from a lot of the same place.
And Bragg's apple cider vinegar, I've been taking that for many years. That just got bought out by a couple of celebrities. So it's like,
yeah.
And so I'm not going to trust that anymore because I don't remember who the celebrities were, but I don't try. Those Bragg people were dedicated to their work. I mean, I've read stories about these people. I mean, but you have to stop and think about where you're spending your money. So vote with your wallet, just like the whole Planet Fitness thing. I had a friend of mine down in Florida. She had solved this whole story about everything that happened in Alaska with that lady. And she said she went over and quit. She's going to a different gym now, I guess. But anyway,
they've lost hundreds of millions of dollars,
but they
400 million, and their stock took a tank too.
Well, they rolled their eyes at her, and then it said at the bottom, it did not agree with our equality policy or something like that. It's like, oh my gosh, it's not equality.
No.
It's so delusional. This whole thing is so delusional. Anyway, speaking of race, there was this Harvard professor, his name is Roland Fryer, who researched the supposed bias in police that they have against Black Americans, and he had this presupposition that it was a real thing, and you don't know until you do your research. He actually did research twice, and anyway, he's going to talk about this. His findings were surprising to him and everybody else.
Black people are 13% of the population, and they are 50% of the police shootings. I'm sorry about that, but I don't know what that has to do with the question. Right? And it was in this moment in 2016 that I realized people lose their minds when they don't like the result. Right? And so what my paper showed, you'll see tomorrow, like some of you, was that, yes, we saw some bias in the low-level uses of force, every day pushing up against cars and things like that. People seem to like that result. But we didn't find any racial bias in police shootings. Now, that was really surprising to me because I expected to see it. The little known fact is I had 8 full-time RAs that it took to do this over nearly a year. When I found the surprising result, I hired 8 fresh ones and redid it to make sure. They came up with the same exact answer, and I thought it was robust. And then I went to go give it, and my God, all hell broke loose. It was 104-page, dense, academic economics paper with a 150-page appendix, okay? It was posted for 4 minutes when I got my first email. This is full of shit. Doesn't make any sense. And I wrote back, how'd you read it that fast? That's amazing. You are a genius. And I had colleagues take me to the side and say, don't publish this. You'll ruin your career. I said, what are you talking about? I said, what's wrong with it? Do you believe the first part? Yes. Do you believe the second part? Well, the issue is they just don't fit together. We like the first one, but you should publish the second one another time. I said, let me ask this. If the second part about the police shootings, this is a literal conversation. I said to them, if the second part showed bias, do you think should publish it then? And they say, yeah, then it would make sense. And I said, I guarantee you I'll publish it. We'll see what happens.
And what happened was that he started getting, the complaints. He even got threats. I don't know whether there were death threats, but he received threats. And he lived under police protection for a month. He had a baby at home, and it's just so sad. If you stand up for the truth, you're going to get bombarded, especially if you're a Democrat. You're going to get...
Yeah, well, it goes against the propaganda narrative that the propaganda machine and what the government is pushing for propaganda. And that's why nobody's watching the local news or the national news. Nobody's watching anymore. I mean, I love when the liberals go, oh, you got to stop watching Fox. I'm going, I don't watch Fox. Yeah. I may see a clip here and there. I don't watch the news.
They probably don't believe you. They probably don't believe you.
Yeah, that's not where the news comes from. It comes from sources that I trust. And if I get something that I go, I'm going to do some more research, because I'm not one of the Dems who goes, okay, I believe it. Okay.
I was going to say, especially, speaking of sources you can trust, if this is going on at Harvard, where they're telling this guy, even though he's got a factually based research project that he wanted to publish, and they're telling him not to publish it or only publish part of it. I mean, what kind of crap are we getting as far as in our papers and stuff and in our magazines?
Yep, it's all just if you think it's not propaganda, I got news for you. That's flat out what it is.
Absolutely. Anyway, we need a palate cleanser. Yeah. I need to scrape my tongue after that.
I feel like a cat with a hairball. I need something to help with that.
I've heard your voice described like that before too. Since it is the beginning of baseball season, was it last week? Last week, right?
Last Thursday was the first game. It's always with Cincinnati. In this country, they played a game in Japan. I'm not counting that. Yeah. That was almost a week before, and it's like, okay, you can call it whatever you want.
My baseball Japan antenna didn't work.
Thursday of last week. That
so anyway, this is your rendition, right? Tell us about it.
Yes, this is the time-honored classic of Casey at the Bat.
Yeah, it's really good, and you did this for a client, right?
Yes, I did it for a client, and he said, "Oh, you can save it and use it whatever you want." He goes, "I just want this for my grandkids." Okay, so I've made a little video, and I've actually posted it on my YouTube page and stuff also. So,
and who knew you'd have a wildly successful podcast that you could play it on too? Well, since you don't have one of those, we're going to play it here. So. Here's Casey at the Bat by our very own Richard Durrington.
Casey at the Bat, a poem by Ernest Lawrence Thayer, and read by Richard Durrington. The outlook wasn't brilliant for the Mudville Nine that day. The score stood 4-2, with but one inning more to play. And then when Cooney died at first, and Barrows did the same, a pall-like silence fell upon the patrons of the game. A straggling few got up to go in deep despair. The rest clung to that hope which springs eternal in the human breast. They thought, if only Casey could get a whack at that, we'd put up even money now with Casey at the bat. But Flynn preceded Casey, as did also Jimmy Blake, and the former was a hoodoo, while the latter was a cake. So upon that stricken multitude grim melancholy sat, for there seemed but little chance of Casey getting to the bat. But Flynn let drive a single to the wonderment of all, and Blake, the much despised, tore the cover off the ball. And when the dust had lifted and the men saw what had occurred, there was Jimmy safe at second, and Flynn a huggin' third. Then from 5,000 throats and more there rose a lusty yell. It rumbled through the valley, it rattled in the dell. It pounded on the mountain and recoiled upon the flat, for Casey, mighty Casey, was advancing to the bat. There was ease in Casey's manner as he stepped into his place. There was pride in Casey's bearing, and a smile lit Casey's face. And when, responding to the cheers, he lightly doffed his hat, no stranger in the crowd could doubt 'twas Casey at the bat. 10,000 eyes were on him as he rubbed his hands with dirt. 5,000 tongues applauded when he wiped them on his shirt. Then, while the writhing pitcher ground the ball into his hip, defiance flashed in Casey's eye, a sneer curled Casey's lip. And now the leather-covered sphere came hurtling through the air, and Casey stood a-watching it in haughty grandeur there. Close by the sturdy batsman, the ball unheeded sped. "That ain't my style," said Casey. "Strike one," the umpires said. From the benches black with people, there went up a muffled roar, like the beating of the storm waves on a stern and distant shore. "Kill him! Kill the umpire!" shouted someone on the stand, and it's likely they'd have killed him had not Casey raised his hand. With a smile of Christian charity, great Casey's visage shone. He stilled the rising tumult, he bade the game go on. He signaled to the pitcher, and once more the dun sphere flew, but Casey still ignored it, and the umpire said, "Strike two!" "Fraud!" cried the maddened thousands, and echoed answered, "Fraud!" But one scornful look from Casey, and the audience was awed. They saw his face grow stern and cold. They saw his muscles strain, and they knew that Casey wouldn't let that ball go by again. The sneer has fled from Casey's lip. His teeth are clenched in hate. He pounds with cruel violence his bat upon the plate. And now the pitcher holds the ball, and now he lets it go, and now the air is shattered by the force of Casey's blow. Oh, somewhere in this favored land the sun is shining bright. The band is playing somewhere, and somewhere hearts are light. And somewhere men are laughing, and little children shout. But there is no joy in Mudville. Mighty Casey has struck out.
Mm-hmm. That was really, really good. I had not heard that before. I heard it for the first time with everybody else, and that's extremely good. Yeah.
Thank you. It's one of those weird, odd pieces. A lot of times we self-criticize all of our stuff that we record, and I'm going, I still enjoyed that.
That's very good. I loved it. We hope you enjoyed that, and we hope you were also somewhat informed and had fun like we did. Don't forget you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, YouTube has everything. And of course, you can ask Miss A to play the latest episode of Stay Off My Lawn podcast.
And you can find us on Rumble as well.
Yes.
Or if you just want to listen to, maybe you're new and want to listen to some of our past stuff, just go to our website at stayoffmylawn.us for all of our past and present episodes.
And we will see you next week, folks.
Toodles! Well, we had fun and hope you did too. The opinions heard here today are not those of anyone other than Mike and Richard. If it made you laugh or go, or even, then we've done our job. Sort of. Well, mostly anyway. And if we made you think about things in a common sense manner, we welcome you to the club. And if it didn't, then just stay off my lawn. See you next time.